Yesterday, The Economist reported that the head of the U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency said that the U.S. and Ukrainian officials failed to assess the depth of Russian defense. How's that possible? Because they were planning this counteroffensive for 6-7 months.
I would probably not go. I'm not going to be original, okay? I started talking about it about half a year ago in earnest, although I was kind of approaching it prior to this for years. It's incompetence. It's military incompetence of military professionals, so to speak, in NATO. They are that incompetent. And we're not talking about in the political class. That goes without saying. Just anybody who has a degree in political science or from any Ivy League school, it's just basically useless people. They are uncultured, uneducated. But it is the fact that on the level of operational and strategic so-called planning or whatever passes way, that militarily they are that incompetent.
It's not just the US and Ukraine, British intelligence, German intelligence, they all together in this war against Russia. It doesn't make sense. In my opinion, when the enemy is on defensive, it's much more predictable comparing to when the enemy is on offensive. And Russia wasn't defensive. Why they couldn't predict their tactics, the Russian strategy in this war, in this counteroffensive?
Because doctrinally, NATO, which is euphemism for United States, doctrinally, which spreads itself from field manuals to whatever doctrinal publications of the Joint Chiefs and everything, they are not designed, they are not, literally designed and built to fight serious enemy who shoots back. And Russians shoot back extremely well, especially considering the fact that ISR, and I've been writing this for years, that's what people still do not understand. They always thought that intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance complex United States had was without equals. Well, it's absolutely not true. A Russian ISR complex, it's space assets, it's all kinds of the sensors, and especially net centricity, which is in place, is in no way inferior. So Russians see, as my friends who are in a serious position on the front lines there, they say that even battalion commander in Russian armed forces on the front lines sees 20-30 kilometers in depth. And Russians also know what and how flies above them, what it tries to get, in terms of the electromagnetic map, in terms of visual, thermal, what have you. So, and because of that, Russians know every single move of Ukraine. And as a result, once you know, or you see your enemy, you can hit your enemy, you can kill your enemy. This was the truism since 1980s.
Tony Blinken is in Ukraine. He just yesterday, he said that it was a good counteroffensive for Ukrainian. What's your assessment of these counteroffensives so far?
Oh, no, there is no counteroffensive. There never was. If you don't get a breach and you don't in 3-4 days, and you don't get to your objectives in 15, the most, it's gone, it's over. It's not counteroffensive. It's just throwing Ukrainian corpses at the basically what is called predpolye, which is the area before the first line of defense, and they're getting slaughtered there in the industrial quantities. And so there's nothing to assess. They will continue to throw it. Russians will continue to do what they continue to do, annihilating them in the industrial quantities, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, Russia has no reason to do anything yet until it completely exhausts basically the mobilizational potential, not only of Ukraine, that is clear as the daylight, but of NATO. And then, well, we'll see what is going to happen. Obviously, something is going to happen.
When Biden said that we are running out of ammunition, they decided to send these cluster bombs to Ukraine. And they're talking about F-16s. Now they're talking about cruise missiles to send to Ukraine. How do you see this sequence of sending weapons to Ukraine? Is it going to change anything on the battlefield in favor of Ukrainians?
No, first, United States, I'm not talking about even NATO, has nothing in its arsenal short of the nuclear weapons, which can change anything. Even if they will start providing them from the stocks or from the assigned TOA table of organization and equipment of the regular cadre units, formations of the US Army, it's not going to change a thing. It's going to be still annihilated in the industrial quantities. It might create some minor tactical level problems, which is inevitable, even when you run, let's say, 600-700 men, even without support of anything, but you run them on the short sector, short front of, let's say, 200-300 meters, you still have to kill them. I'm sorry for being so blunt and seemingly bloodthirsty, I'm not. But I mean, even some of them might get through, so even no matter how you kill them, you can, especially as we know, it's the fact which has been confirmed, corroborated many times, most of the Ukrainian military sits on the amphetamines. They are pumped literally with the drugs. It's been known for a long time now, for many months now. And so, yeah, you're still going to get somebody somewhere. They will either fall POWs or they will, just stop somewhere until they get, killed later. And the same here. I mean, it doesn't matter what they supply. It's, as I already stated, NATO militaries, and lucky for me, I wrote 3 books on that. They're not designed to find the real combined arms or multi-domain war against the peer. And in Russia, they don't just have the peer. In some things, they simply have no technological means to counter what Russians have. And the question of this, be that air defense, be that standoff weapons, especially supersonic and hypersonic missiles, and we can go on and on and on. And, so there you go. We have Mr. Blinken coming to Kiev and doing what they usually do. Most US media and so-called military experts, which are pathetic, all those US generals, they are just, butt of jokes in Russia. People openly laugh at them. So, and they lie, they invent things, they invent facts, they just, pretend that they are good. They're not.
How about if F-16s, because they are training Ukrainians, if they get the best training possible, let's assume that, is that going to be a game changer?
No, it doesn't matter what it is, F-16, F-35, F-22, it absolutely makes no difference whatsoever. They will be detected, they will be tracked, their firing solution will be developed, and they will be shut down. And it doesn't matter what kind of the training you have there. If you look attentively at how, for example, not only Russian air defense, whose actually effectiveness on the aerodynamic targets such as the fixed wing airplane and helicopters, rotary wing, is approaching 100%. That means, and then of course you have Russian Air Force, which is, by the way, expanding dramatically. And it's just now, it's not even arguably, it's just the best Air Force in the world right now. And it operates, basically everybody knows right now, if you are a Ukrainian pilot, the only thing you have to learn is how to take off, because you will not need to learn how to land because you will be shut down. And it doesn't matter what you fly there. And it doesn't matter in what quantities, in terms of be them 10, 15 or 20 or even 40 aircraft. They will be detected, they will be intercepted. And again, this is the issue which many people do not understand, the issue of the situational and tactical awareness. The Russians have the full battlefield awareness, and they see deep into the, not just Ukraine, into the NATO territory.
We know that some of these F-16s and cruise missiles that they're going to send to Ukraine are capable of carrying nuclear bombs. How do you see the role of these weapons, these new bombs they're going to send to Ukraine in the escalation of the war in Ukraine?
We're talking about B-61 bomb. It's a free-falling. I mean, I believe it can glide, but the point is, It is a bomb. It is not a missile. And in order for you to drop it, even if to imagine that somehow somebody decides to commit suicide, you need to get your aircraft, such as F-16, which is the technologically obsolete. No matter how you update it, I mean, it's a very beautiful looking aircraft, you know. And when it came out first, you know, it looked absolutely, you know, fantastic and beautiful, gorgeous. But the point is, it's also technology. No matter what you stick in there, you know, those AISA radar and things like that. But in order for you to drop the atomic bomb, if we assume that somebody indeed goes completely bananas, which they are not far away from it anyway in White House, you still need to get your aircraft within the vicinity of your target. You know, tens of kilometers. And once you get there, you will be shut down, no matter how you try. You can try, of course, the low pass, but then again, if you have, which you have most of the time now, A-50 mainstay, Russian AVAX, Sentry, and other air defense system also operating there, you will be detected and you will be shut down.
We know that the UK sent depleted uranium bombs to Ukraine. Now they're talking about the US. They're going to send more to Ukraine. How do you see the role of these bombs? Are they going to change the face of war in terms of the effects that going to have on the environment?
Yeah, it's primarily environmental. I mean, in terms of the munitions themselves, they're just munitions, you know, they are high density rounds usually. And Russians use tungsten, for example, instead of the depleted uranium. But the point is that, yeah, it is primarily environmental because once they from what I know, I'm not a specialist in this field, and please don't quote me on this. There are people who know much more about the chemical component of this and how it pollutes the environment. But in and of themselves, it's just another round, you know, so it militarily makes very little difference, if any. So it is primarily post-battle and how it will decay within the ground. That's what I think is primary concern.
We know that with all that said, sending these cruise missiles, these depleted uranium bombs, F-16s, even cluster bombs. We don't have any evidence that Russia is using these cluster bombs in Ukraine. No evidence so far. How do you see the Russian strategy? They're so calm, they're doing their way. They're not getting excited about these things that are happening on the part of NATO.
Russian objective here is not even Ukraine. Russian objective here is destruction of the NATO or rolling it back. And that is why Ukraine is merely just the one of the links in this chain of the events which stretch from Syria to Africa to, for example, Taiwan, you know, with China now kind of, you know, supporting Russia, even if tacitly, you know. So, and yeah, it is a much larger game here, and Russia has a much bigger fish to fry here. So, and that is why, I mean, again, people do not understand. The war is over for Ukraine. Ukraine right now exists only because the United States pumps whatever it can into Ukraine. And once it stops pumping, which it's coming to an end, because considering the economic, rather pathetic state of the United States, and let's not talk about military state, then, I mean, we'll see what Russia will be doing, because Russians are concerned now with only one thing in terms of Ukraine. How much should they take? And there is a very clear understanding in Russia that there are not many friends of Russia in Ukraine. Some are. And the question is, how do you handle this territory, which is basically populated, whatever is left of the wherever the remnants are of the brainwashed Ukrainian population? So, and that's the main strategic concern. Militarily, no matter what NATO does, it's not going to change outcome in any way. It simply cannot. And some people, even in Washington, begin to get the message, you know, however late. So, and the Russians' main concern is this, and what to do with the overall global state of the affairs. And Ukraine, while important, is just the part of it, you know.
Definitely, we are seeing some articles in the mainstream media. They're talking about the failure of this counteroffensive. And despite all these articles in the mainstream media, we've seen that they're sending more weapons to Ukraine, more money to Ukraine. And do you see any change in the Biden administration's policy that we can consider it as a off-ramp to this war?
Not as of now. I know there is a panic in the White House, that's for sure. So, but I don't see any change because those people, as I already stated, when you look at the Blinkens, Nulands, and Sullivans of those things, I mean, these are not normal statesmen or stateswomen. They are ideologue, they are fanatics in their Russophobia, and they fight not for democracy or anything. They fight for what's left of their primacy of the US dollar. And they do not understand, obviously, because they are uneducated, uncultured people, which is primarily product which is produced in the humanities departments of the US Ivy League or Oxford in Great Britain. But a point is they will continue to destroy the country and their reputation. American military, your reputation is in tatters. It exists only within the milieu, so to speak, cultural milieu and sphere of the Rara boys and think tanks and some mass media, but that's about it. The world already saw that the emperor is naked, basically, So and in this particular case, they have nothing left to do but to continue to press on because they don't know anything else. They're literally that incompetent and incapable of making, serious diplomatic or, international relations conclusions, not to speak about the fact that, again, as I already stated, we knew always that American political top is militarily illiterate completely. But now we have to admit to the fact that, my gosh, militarily, even the top brass, all those generals, all those Pentagon Joint Chiefs of Staff, they have no clue, what they were doing. But then again, look at America's military record. It loses every single war it fights, except for Grenada, of course.
And the other important factor in war in Ukraine is the manpower of the Ukrainian army that is diminishing considerably. Shoigu yesterday reported 66,000 Ukrainian soldiers were lost in this counteroffensive. Is it possible for them to retrieve what they've lost in this counteroffensive?
No, they will try to mobilize, which they're trying to do now, anybody, including 17 and even 16-year-old kids. They mobilize people which are above 60. They mobilize people with just order came out by the Defense Ministry of Ukraine a few days ago. It coincided with the change of the Minister of Defense. So they had one nut job, now they have another nut job in parallel. And that about the lowering of the criteria for the being, basically drafted. And they essentially allow you to have people with the psychiatric, issues, sick people, basically being drafted. And you cannot train them. And it's just cannon fodder, basically. That's what it is. They can create some, pool of the cannon fodder and can throw it again. It will be again physically annihilated. And that's about it. What can I say? It just prolongs the agony of the Ukrainian state and Ukrainian people, whatever is left of them. And when you look at this, what can I say? You already know probably about the additional graveyard areas being afforded or allotted for, which is coming, basically, we know, another hundreds of thousands of KIAs. And the actual number, I'm on record since the start, once the actual number will be released, plus minus, of how many KIAs they had for the last 18 months, it will be a wowzer, but we already know that it is about 400,000. How much about 400,000 KIAs? I don't know. A lot.
The German media reported just yesterday that 160,000 young Ukrainian of the military age have fled to Germany from Ukraine. This shows that how Ukrainians are not happy with this war, with this continuation of this war? And how do you see the policy in Ukraine? We are not going to have any election in Ukraine.
Those who have half brain left in Ukraine, they try to run, obviously. It's natural. Because no matter how much you are being brainwashed by propaganda, and but everybody can see basically what is happening now in terms of the draft policies by the Kiev regime, which is essentially criminal. They basically getting down to the point of, they already passed the point of what in Germany was in 44, 45, something like Volksgrenadier divisions, basically they are now down to the Volkssturm phase and Hitler Youth, basically, and that's what is happening. So, I mean, what can I say? They made their choice, Ukraine. They wanted it, so they must. I have no idea how they gonna deal this psychiatrically, but there are some serious issues in terms of propaganda and being brainwashed as a people in Ukraine. So, but they will continue dying until Russia decides to finish it off once and for all, but it's not up to Ukraine. Ukraine is finished, as I already stated, armed forces of Ukraine. It is all about NATO and what Washington does. So Russia wouldn't mind also see EU disintegrate, which is happening. And so, we have a much, as I already stated, Russia has a much larger fish, much bigger fish to fry.
But the quality of the training that they're receiving from these NATO in 11 countries, they are training these Ukrainians with different methods, different strategies, different people. These people that are training Ukrainians are not aware of a real war. What does it look like? Have no experience of war in their lifetime.
I actually can read my book, Real Revolution in Military Affairs, which came out in 2019. Exactly 3 years before the start of the special military operation. And I'm on record constantly, including in my first book, and I continue to state that United States Army has no experience with the real combined arms. And they use their Gulf War as the yardstick. And that was the worst thing which could have happened to them, because always not very strong combined arms force, which in the Cold War 1.0 relied primarily on the reconstituted, basically not Wehrmacht, but Bundeswehr, which was in 1970s and 80s a very serious force. And of course, they saw all other, NATO members, armies, which have been trained properly, so to speak, to face off first 5-6 days of the Soviet assault, and then they would go nuclear anyway. But now you suddenly have the people who think that because they beat the third-rate Iraqi army, which couldn't even plan operations properly, and they kind of made this conclusion that they are so good. They're not. They never were, and that's the problem. And when you look at the field manuals and things like that, I mean, no NATO army can fight with the peer. They simply do not have TOE, Table of Organization on and Equipment. For example, there are no US officer who can grasp the idea, including those people from those, General Staff and Command College in Leavenworth, Kansas. Those who teach all those, fancy NATO thingies, they don't understand. Unlike the case with Iraq or let alone Afghanistan, they once got the taste of what it means to deal with people who have the standoff weapons when they assassinated General Soleimani. And Iran actually, warned them that we're going to respond. Now, they do not understand how to fight without being situationally aware and your communications suppressed. They still think that they will have their ISR assets on the orbit. They will not. They don't understand how to have your complex suppressed. They don't understand, for example, when your core, headquarters of the Corps or the Army, which are in depth, several hundred kilometers in depth from the front, they are still a very easy target, and they can be reached depending on the type of the weapon, and they could be annihilated. They have no clue about it. They don't understand how to lose command and control of the units. So, so these people now coming to Ukraine, and they were trying to teach some of the soldiers and officers who had more experience surviving modern, brutal warfare than they ever did. And again, I'm not opening, basically disclosing any secret, but in Russia, there is a basically very succinct, however, kind of primitive, but it's kind of, to give the first impression thing, how Americans fight. They get on the line of the contact, somebody shoots, and then they call in close air support. That's it. They don't understand what it has to, for example, tank company being annihilated within the first 2 minutes of being, built into their company column. Because United States Army never encountered, for example, smart munitions. And you begin to go over it and you look at this. I mean, all those general words about long range fires, command and control, it's all fine. But what are you going to do if all your aircraft will be shut down? And there you go.
In this war, something new has happened. That was the role of these drones that Russia is using in Ukraine. How important do you find it?
Oh, yeah, it is obviously extremely important, but this is only one of the tools. One of the tools. What it has to be understood, actually, apart from the loitering munitions, which is now very world-famous Lancet, for example, which hunts any tank, any armored vehicle or whatever you have, we have to remember also that there is also an antidote being developed simultaneously with the development of those systems. And Russians have an extremely efficient electronic warfare suppressing means for enemy drones. And obviously, we actually now can observe even the drone against drone aerial combat. Some drones fight other drones. So it is important. But I want to stress, this is not the only means of the long-range fires. People have to keep in mind that many people still do not understand the importance, for example, of such extremely advanced, they have been updated and already improved throughout the special military operations, such as the laser-guided and smart munition as Krasnopol or Kitalov shells, the guided munitions. A lot of tanks, I mean, quite a huge number, actually, of tanks and armored personnel carriers of the armed forces of Ukraine have been basically destroyed by these types of munition. This is artillery shells, but they are guided and you have no defense against them.
Is it possible after this war, let's assume that they go for a negotiating table, in your opinion, is there any room for Ukraine joining NATO?
No. I mean, the war will end on Russia's conditions because it's already essentially militarily it's over. What we see is kind of the, how to put it militarily, it's the formalization of the outcome. That's what we see, because no matter what they want to pretend it as the stalemate. Obviously, those people who push this stupidity, they are disingenuous or stupid. I mean, many of them are generally stupid. So, and especially American journalists, it's it's a I mean, laughing stock of the world. But the point is, what we see now is formalization. Russia sits there pretty calm, and it's basically gives the United States time to think how it will accept their conditions. And conditions will be no NATO, obviously. Whatever is going to happen to Ukraine or whatever is going to be left of Ukraine, I don't know. Only Kremlin and Russia Security Council know that. Maybe even they don't know it yet because they have to decide on what to do. So, but other than that, it's formalization phase right now. So what the armed forces of Ukraine going to do? What is NATO going to do? Is NATO going to go on the in war with Russia? With what? United States has no resources to start any kind of combined arms operation against Russians, no matter how they try. Forget about Europeans. Europeans here are just the doormat. They are nobodies, They will be told, they will do as told. So, and when you look at this, it's just, yeah, it's between Russia and the United States, but United States with this administration and internal dynamics in the United States, which is, of course, we know the whole situation with Biden, we know the elections coming, Trump, this whole crazy dynamics and how they destroy country from the inside. Russians just have to sit and wait and observe what is happening. And it's fascinating for many Russians. They look at it as, wow, what a show.
It seems that Biden going to be the final nomination of the Democratic Party. And on the other hand, we know that he's not physically capable of doing that. Is it going to be a Republican, Democrat? How do you see this, the next president of the US? Because it's so important for the outcome of this war.
The America itself is in pretty much a hysterical state right now. And what is happening in Washington could be described only, one expression, psychiatric ward, with the violent, mad people running around. And that is why, for example, Russians have nobody to talk to, so it doesn't really matter. Whoever comes, there is a uniparty sitting there. Discount all those, real Republicans, very few of them who really want to kind of, control the party. In reality, even the Republican Party is a rhino party. It's a neocon-driven entity. So they have very little difference between Democrats and Republicans as the establishment. So it's a single-party state now, and whoever comes, it makes no difference. They will do nothing because the country is, completely corrupted top bottom right now. I never saw anything in my life like this. It's just unbelievable. It actually reminds me Yeltsin's Russia, with the doors in Kremlin rotating with all kinds of the ungainly creatures just going on with the bribes and all that stuff. So same as here. It's the empire in the collapse. And whatever is going to happen after that, I don't know. So I don't know the dynamics, but how these dynamics will play out. But it makes no difference. All of them are warmongers. And many of them who say that, they want to stop war, they say it because of the populist slogan, because obviously American public generally, at least most of it, I think, is tired of that. And again, look at the economic state of the United States. It is just a disaster, honestly. And so whoever comes, Russia gonna talk even to the devil, as long as the devil has the rational thinking, But you cannot talk with American politicians. They're not rational people. And again, as I already stated, special military operation and the way geopolitics evolved in the last 24 months, it shows that those people really that stupid. I mean, they are that incompetent.
You think that the final negotiation is going to be between Russia and the US, just not considering anything about the EU?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think so both Russia and the United States are okay with EU disintegrating. Europeans proved themselves stupid and gullible, and so they're basically, and don't forget, a lot of Russophobia actually originates not from United States, albeit, of course, considering their complete irrationality and neocon-dominated Biden administration, you do expect it, and especially the sewer human and professional, which we call US mainstream media. But actually, Europeans, by nature, majority of Europeans, they are not, people who love Russia, let's put it this way. And when you look at the majority of Germans, majority of Finns, majority of whoever French, they don't like Russians, most of them. I'm not talking about whatever 10-15% of people who might have reasonable attitudes towards Russian. Majority of Europe don't like Russians, so there you go. So And in this particular case, Russia has no reason to talk to Europeans. To talk to who? Again, look at them. Most of them are just, it's a joke. You know, look at Germany. How can you talk to Scholz or his stupid bimbo Baerbock? I mean, those are not normal people. And the same goes for Macron. Same goes to Rutte, who just actually basically removed himself from the political life of Netherlands. Meloni, she's fraud. They all are. So you cannot trust any word from them. So
it doesn't matter what you get in Europe. You're gonna get from the left, from the right. Meloni, when she was going to be the president, everyone was talking about, oh, it's gonna be a change in Italy. Nothing changed.
Nothing changes. They are utterly corrupt. All of them are frauds. I called Meloni the moment I saw what she was saying. The only guy who is a genuine article there is Viktor Orban. And actually, as strange as it sounds, is, although he's not EU, it's Mr. Erdogan, because Erdogan cares only about Turkey. So, and when you look at this, other than that, they're just lapdogs, again, uncultured, uneducated, I mean, completely incompetent. These are basically what is called the degree meal of European so-called elites. When you look at Baerbock, for example, or Scholz, or Bach, the economic minister, they're downright stupid. I mean, I'm sorry. Who of any, you know, real statesman status gonna talk to them? They're idiots, basically, you know, apart from the fact that having people having no integrity, no human honor, nothing. The only thing they can sell is Russophobia, and many of them are genuinely Russophobic. They hate Russia genuinely. And that is why, I mean, to talk to Europeans about what? I mean, yeah, so they cannot even figure out how many genders they have, you know, and so let them be, let them go and all green, you know, so let them kill what's ever gonna be left of the economy, and that's it.
We know that another front of this conflict between Russia and the US, even China, Russia and China on one side and the US on the other side, is in Africa. We had a coup in Niger. And and China is helping Africans to build up their infrastructure, and Russia have some military experts there. Wagner Group is there. How do you see this new confrontation, if we can consider it a new confrontation? How do you see this in Africa?
It's difficult to say. And actually, Russia, they are not only present through their whatever is left and reformed from Wagner Group, because I'm pretty sure there are other organizations of similar nature who are involved there.
Private.
Yeah, private, yeah. But the truth is now that I don't know how it will be complete. It's been completely remodeled, so to speak. But Russia is entering there economically big time also, including building infrastructure and things of this nature. So I don't know what United States can give, really. The only thing United States nowadays has is primarily a lot of printed dollars. Economically, United States is dwarfed by China. This is the fact which people from Wall Street Journal, due to them being incompetent hacks, do not understand, that you can have whatever dollars you want, but you have to be able to deliver on many things which really matter, which are tangible. And in this particular case, Russia and China, they have a lot more to offer to Africa than whatever the United States wants to offer. So, and, you know, so simple as that.
How do you see the viability of the Taiwanese going to war against China?
The United States doesn't have plan. It doesn't have strategic planning. It has general ideas, and then it creates business plan, okay? Not strategy, as you saw yourself. It's not even miscalculation. I mean, it's the amateur planning for Ukraine. That's what happened there. I'm pretty sure there is amateur planning for Taiwan too. And but the point is that China is not as established militarily as one might think. Obviously, what they have coming down, coming to power, evidently, through the elections, because evidently they have a support now of the majority of the population of Taiwan. And the coming down is obviously about joining China, just basically becoming the part of China. How it will play itself out politically, I don't know. Do not have any insights. I don't know language. I'm not sinologist. But militarily, I'm not even sure that United States can sustain the operations anymore, despite having a dramatic advantage over Chinese in terms of the submarine force. But after Mr. Xi visit March this year to Moscow, there are all reasons to suspect that China will get some certain weapon systems from Russia, which will allow to keep United States Navy reliably away from the shores of the Taiwan. So, and then of course, China needs just to wait for I understand, elections and how the formalization of the unification will proceed. That's my thought on that. But other than that, I don't know. United States have been exposed dramatically, actually. So, but we can already state very clearly that China basically admitted, if you wish, and accepted the fact that Russia is the major Chinese energy supplier, and there will be a lot of technology supply, issues which will be still continue developing between Russia and China. So, and that basically shapes the framework, so to speak, of how China will be approaching its fight or whatever there will be around Taiwan. So, in this particular case, Russia and China, they stand, not shoulder to shoulder, but back to each other, and this fits Russia well. And we'll see how it will fit China, but obviously Chinese understand that their lifeline in case of the serious conflict with the United States is Russia, of course. And you need to have energy. You need to have all of it. And China really needs it.
The only country that has the experience of a real war is Russia right now. Their contribution to China, if anything happened in Taiwan, would be huge for Chinese in terms of weapons, artillery. How crucial is that in the mind of Chinese, in your opinion?
Very absolutely crucial, especially when you look at the Minister of Defense, Mr. Li Shangfu. He's actually the guy who was in charge and was promoting constantly, incessantly, the closer military relations between Russia and China. And he's the guy who also was trying to initiate, and he's initiating type of the reform, which will bring Chinese forces to the, level of the superpower. And they know that without Russia, it's very difficult to do, to put it mildly. And you have to know that actually there are many Chinese officers in Moscow. There was already experienced number of occasions of the unified command of the mixed Russian-Chinese units, even formations, fighting together as the unified force. So that tells you a lot. It's essentially the, to a certain degree, formation of the military union without declaring it. And of course, China needs very much the Russian hypersonic technologies, Russian submarine technologies, and a lot of other technologies, which of course many people still believe that, China has the lead, but she doesn't. I mean, China still lags dramatically in many systems, and Russia is the kind of one of those, keys to the military superpower status of China.
The Chinese Minister of Defense just announced 2 weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, that they're going to be an alliance between SCO countries, Belarus and Iran. And it seems that they're moving toward an alliance between these countries, even Russia. How did you find that? It's a big move on the part of China.
China also have to remember there's another thing here. that Russia and China have also their differences, no doubt about it. It's normal. Any country has difference. Do not forget that once Russia formalizes this north-south corridor, which is proceeding apace as we speak, and especially with Iran essentially joining BRICS, and then, of course, Iran, well, just consider this. Iran and Russia are removing their visa requirements for travel. You can travel just, to Iran, fly from Moscow to Tehran without any visa, and back same way. So, and considering Iran's energy potential, which is gigantic, and then you suddenly have this vast market. It's a large country. And once you begin to get it together, put it together, you have a very serious Eurasian military bloc. And that is why the latest news when Russia supplied finally the Yakolev 130 trainer aircraft. It's not Arabic, it's the best trainer aircraft in the world. And that means what? After that, serious airplanes, serious combat aircraft are coming. Iran will be buying it. And then, of course, we look at the vast market for Russian commercial airspace in Iran. And when you look at this is, oh, that's serious, for example. Just to give you an example, why it is serious and why China kind of wants to keep an eye on this. Iran is in a dire need of the renovation of its air fleet, commercial air fleet. They still fly Airbus 300s, okay? So they fly MD-88s, which do not fly anymore. Anyway, but look at this. China, for example, they, with pomp, they announced the production of the C919 COMAC aircraft. Well, if you look at this aircraft, 90% of this aircraft is not Chinese. It's actually Western, from engine to avionics to everything, basically system. The Chinese made there like a couple of the wing consoles and some, parts of fuselage. That's about it. Russia just now already entered the final test of the Sukhoi Superjet, which is now fully Russified, and MS-21 is fully Russified. China cannot export this COMAC to Iran. You know why? Because it will be forbidden to do that. So, well, guess what? Russia can export whatever she wants to Iran because it's all Russian made, and there are no requirement, which is anything above 10% of the foreign made, you cannot export it. And this is just one of examples of those things. So, and we have this complex dynamics, but yeah, once Iran joins Russia, you have, Russia is already Russia superpower in many respects. Actually, it is genuine superpower, just superpower as such. But I mean, when you add Iran and you add Iran's capabilities, industrial capabilities and demographic and transport and energy, then you have a geopolitical monster. And that is why Mr. Erdogan is also was in Sochi. He has to decide very soon.
And they're talking about Erdogan and Putin. We're talking about this new grain deal between Russia and Turkey, and they were talking about doing the trades in their currency, in their local currency. It seems that Erdogan is so willing to join BRICS. How do you see the behavior of Turkey? Are they going to join BRICS, in your opinion?
I would say likely at some point of time. So, but Russia doesn't press Turkey, and again, listen, you have to understand, no matter what Erdogan does, and he does a lot of things which are kind of questionable, and again, this is not a grain deal. They negotiated just 1 million tons of grain go to Africa, bypassing Ukraine and everything. Russians give this grain and Turkey will be the main hub. But now when you hear this latest news that the second nuclear power station will be built by Russians in Turkey, which is huge, in itself. So yeah, Erdogan has no other option. He's not a stupid man. He's a very shrewd politician. He sees what is happening in Europe. He sees where it is all going. It's going down the drain. Europe literally circles the drain as we speak. So for him, his future is to basically be the part of BRICS, which is absolutely natural. For obviously, that means also kind of, you know, cutting down on his Osman Empire ambitions. But it's fine, you know, he will do it if he needs to, because Turkey has a lot of economic issues, and the only way she can resolve it and mitigate them will be through BRICS. It cannot be done through EU. It cannot be done anymore. EU is becoming poor, and it in coming years, if it even exists at that time, Europe will be much poorer. And I'm talking about much, like not necessarily like the third world, but certainly like the second world.
Just to wrap up this session, I want to talk about Putin, because this man is so wise, the kind of wisdom he has. Because if we consider, for example, for instance, Turkey, that was sending weapons, drones to Ukraine. And with all that said, Putin just considers all of these movements, but he's willing to negotiate with Turkey. We don't see anything like this in the West, in the Western countries, in the Western politicians. How important is the role of Putin in what we know as Russia today?
Oh, it's huge, but also we should keep in mind, Putin is not just one person there. There is a collective Putin, so to speak. And when you look at the people who are in Russian government, be it Mr. Medvedev, be it Mr. Shoigu, be it Mr. Gerasimov, Chief of General Staff, be it Mr. Belousov or Mr. Mishustin, Prime Minister, and these are people with outstanding, not only human qualities and professional qualities, they're humans. And when you look at this, this is like, wow, that's the team, you know? He has a team. And many people in Russia understand that. For example, nobody notices that Mikhail Mishustin, the prime minister of Russia, has the rating through the roof. You know, he has like second or third man Russians trust after Putin. Can you believe that? And yeah, the guy, he just does his job. He is not, you know, knee-jerk, PR-driven, you know, pathos-driven BSer, you know, and populist. He just comes out, does his job. He flies non-stop over the country. He visits plants. He talks to people, you know. And so, yeah, it's very important. But Putin, of course, is the kind of like the cherry on the top, if you wish, you know. So, and the Russians, obviously, he has an incredible support in Russia.